Hello, welcome to How to Handle Anything. I am just beaming to have this conversation today. And this is actually the first time Cameron and I are ever having a conversation. But I was so impressed with his story, which he's going to get into more. And I just knew that he'd have a lot of stories about how he's handled anything. Welcome to the show, Cameron.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Cameron, say we were sitting next to each other on a long haul flight and we were actually the kind of people that talk to one another on a long haul flight, or at least introduce ourselves, maybe learn a few things about each other. What might I learn about you in that introduction on a flight? How might you introduce yourself to me?
Okay, like a few bullet points. So, my name is Cameron Mofid. I'm 25 years old from San Diego, and I recently became the youngest person to ever visit every country in the world in North Korea in April. I have a nonprofit in Nigeria. We have two schools and an orphanage there. I love Japanese food, I love house music, and I love beautiful sunsets here in California.
Oh my gosh, the sunsets in California are beautiful. And you've probably seen a lot of sunsets.
Quite a few, yes.
So,
Quite a few.
first, congratulations. That's quite a feat to go to every country in the world and at such a young age. What inspired this adventure?
Well, I think curiosity is kind of the driving force, what I tell people now, because um, I've always had a fascination with the geopolitics of the world, learning about different ethnic groups, different populations. I remember when I was in fourth grade, all the kids during reading time were reading Harry Potter and other fiction books, and my teacher allowed me to have this sort of geography encyclopedia where I was studying, different nationalities and cultures and languages and religions. And when I was 12, my parents had sent me to a Model UN advanced geography camp. So I spent 3 weeks kind of learning every single country in the world on the map,
Wow.
learning about Kim Jong Un in North Korea, learning about the history of World War II. All of this stuff would be maybe a little bit unusual for a 12-year-old, but for me, it was the coolest thing ever. So this mission to every country, I think, was really a culmination of that curiosity since I was a child.
Yeah, that is not what a lot of 12-year-olds are excited about. You're like, I'm going to geography camp, and they're like, I'm going to go play basketball or soccer
Yeah.
or football. Um, I love that you followed that curiosity. And obviously, going to a lot of places, anyone who's traveled anywhere knows that it's not always exactly what you think it's going to be like. And I'm curious how you went into this adventure, what maybe some of your expectations were, and what was most surprising to you? What were some of the most surprising things? I'm sure there are many.
Yeah, there was a lot. I mean, I think I went into it with the mentality that what could go wrong would go wrong, and that's often what happened. So I wasn't as I expected when things were going to go kind of let's say not the way that I had planned, that things were going to get canceled, that I was going to get sick, that there were so many different moving parts to planning a trip to 195 countries. But yeah, I mean, I guess the mindset is always just to challenge your perspectives, to keep an open mind. As I said, like that's sort of the premier principle of what it is to be curious, right? Is to have an open mind and to learn. But then again, also just to kind of go along with the journey, go with the flow. I traveled to 195 countries with a backpack, so inherently there are things that are going to go in a good way, things that are going to go in a bad way. Often the ones that went to the bad side are the ones that give the best stories in the end. And so that's my short answer to your question.
Well, great. Let's hear one of those stories because I want to hear one of these great stories that came from something that maybe seemed bad in the moment that you experienced it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't do a lot of these things again, but when we were talking before, you were telling me like, oh, with travel, people get stressed because there's flights get canceled, and I was just thinking to myself, there's a lot worse things that go wrong when you travel to every country in the world than some canceled flights. One of those times being I was in the East African country of Djibouti. It's in the Horn of Africa. I'm not sure if you've heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
Borders Somalia. And that's a place that receives very minimal tourism for good reason, to be honest. But I was in the local market, one of the local markets, taking pictures, and I had noticed that people there chew this drug called khat. It's like
Hmm.
this sort of plant-based drug that they chew, and it gives them a little buzz, a little high. And so I didn't want to be obviously taking pictures of this khat. I didn't know if it was legal or if it was an acceptable thing. So I was sort of secretly taking pictures on my phone. And the next thing I know, one of the shopkeepers had reported me to the local police because they thought I was suspicious. Again, you have to remember, like, this is a country that receives next to no tourism. And then in this specific market, in this village, really like no tourists. So
Yeah.
for them to see someone that looked different taking pictures with their phone in a secret way was raised some red flags. And so
Mm.
I had been in situations like this in the past where I was able to sort of negotiate my way out of, and that's layman's term for pay a small bribe to the policeman and have a nice day. But this was not the case. This guy was very upset. And then I had 10 shopkeepers around me pointing at me, saying, American, American spy. And things just unraveled very quickly. And so the decision they made was to take me to jail. They took me to jail. It was 110 degrees outside in Djibouti. The jail had no air conditioning, and they held me there until they could get a head of national police and a translator. And once they saw the pictures on my phone of me with selfies with a smiley face and a thumbs up, they realized that I was not, in fact, a spy or a journalist, just a stupid tourist. And they let me go and told me they never wanted to see me again. So I can laugh about this story now, but when you're sitting in a jail cell in Djibouti with no phone, no ability to call anyone, no ability to communicate with anyone, it's a very different feeling in the moment. So again, like you just sort of have to take these things as they come to sort of go with the flow and realize that I'm sitting here now telling you this story, and it's one of the funnier, better stories I have from my travels. So sometimes these unexpected moments can lead to some great stories to tell.
Yeah, well, that is, and all of that while it's 110 degrees outside. Let's not let's
Yeah.
not
So
sugarcoat that.
inside, yeah,
But in that moment, like, yeah, when you can look at it now, it's a great story. It's unique. I imagine there's not many people who have sat in a jail cell in Djibouti. But once you were there, do you recall, like, what did you do in that jail cell? Were you just like, were you
stare at a wall.
calm, like counting, like, scratches on the wall? Like, how were you handling, like, a situation that was so outside of your control while you were in that period where you really couldn't do anything except just wait?
Yeah, and you kind of hit the nail on the head there, which is totally out of your control. Like there really was nothing I could do. I didn't have a phone. I couldn't leave. So you kind of do just stare at a white wall for hours on end. I mean, it wasn't the first time and it wasn't the last time that something like this had happened, where you have to deal with immigration or you're detained or you're just not allowed to leave while they're investigating you. But um, I mean, I try to stay calm, right? Like it's easier said than done. I knew that everything in the end was going to be okay. I had a flight that night to Ethiopia, and actually, I wound up making that flight
Wow.
late at night because they released me, and then we got into a minor car accident on the way from the airport to the hotel. So it was not a good day. But um, yeah, I mean, it is really just relinquishing that sort of like anxiety and I have OCD myself, so I always want to be in control of my thoughts, control of my environment, and this is the polar opposite of that. So sometimes you kind of just have to let things play out and hope that everything will be okay.
How did these travels change your relationship to control?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'm happy you're asking me that because again, I have OCD. It's a disorder that a lot of people don't fully understand. People think it's just like being organized and neat, but it's a lot more than that. It's sort of replaying conversations in your head. You feel like a hostage to your own mind oftentimes, and so travel was what started off as an escape for me, escape from my environment, escape from things that my head had told me were you know not acceptable in a sense. So to get far away from that environment was one thing, but then for me to say, okay, I'm literally going to go on a mission to every country in the world. I know that things are not going to go as planned. I know that there's going to be problems, and let's just let them play out as they're going to play out.
Mm.
So it's affected my relationship to control in the sense that like you just have to sort of let and again, not to say it over and over again, but just let things happen the way that they're going to happen, to go with the flow of life, with these countries taking overnight buses through rural African countries, staying in hotels with no running water and no electricity, staying in insect infested hotels. Like these are all the sort of things like I put myself in this position intentionally because I wanted to grow. I wanted to recover, I guess, from this disorder that I have. And so, yeah, I think with most people, they want to try to be more in control, want to be more organized, want to be more uh, timely, whatever it was. For me, it was sort of the opposite.
I so relate to that in that I was certainly I'm a recovering perfectionist and someone who loves having control over something. And when I started practicing improv comedy, right, it's like you can't. You literally have no idea what's going to happen. You have to take it scene by scene. And the two kind of improv principles that come to mind are like saying yes and playing the scene you're in, right? You just acknowledge
Right.
what's happening, you make choices based on what's happening, and then you play that scene you're in with what you have at the time because that's all you can do. And in some ways, I don't know about for you, but like the freedom in that to just be like to surrender is actually freeing. And it because it takes a lot of energy to try to control situations or predict all the possibilities. And with travel, right, I imagine there's a lot of like you want to be able to plan. There's so many logistics involved with flights and getting from here to there and on a scale of 195 countries. So in some ways, the trying to control things or planning things is really important. Like you need to be able to do those things in some regard, but then to be able to say, but whatever happens, I can release control of it and just like go with the flow. There's a little bit of a balance there, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean there is, and so in my sense, like my sort of type A OCD persona helped in the planning stages. As you
Mm,
can imagine, visiting every country in the world, 195, the logistics involved in doing that are tremendous in terms of budgeting, visas, fixers, which is a term we use for guides in more obscure countries, um, entry permits into certain places, COVID testing. That was a huge thing back when I was traveling during COVID. And so it's almost like putting a puzzle together, and you have to be super on top of things, always checking the entry requirements. So on that side, yes, like I was meticulous about having the sort of travel plan set so I could go out on this journey and visit
mm,
195 countries. Because if I was too hands off, I wouldn't have made it past, 60, 70. But then and one thing I really love doing, which is maybe different than some others who you'll speak to or travelers you'll meet, is I like to plan my entire trip before I went. So I would leave for
mm,
2 or 3 months at a time and then come home and plan the next trip. And I did that because I really wanted to stay in the moment while I was traveling. I didn't want to always be thinking about what my next move was going to be and where I'd go to next. So when I was there, I was always very present in terms of like relinquishing that control to the journey because I didn't have to think like, okay, there's something else on my mind, something else I'm always thinking about. That was already set up, already sorted, and I could just really be present, and allow myself that opportunity to engage with the people of the countries that I were in the most genuine way possible.
yeah, that makes it that is I feel like a travel tip anyone could use when planning a trip, right? Or if you're planning a long stay somewhere going from place to place of the, if you don't I've been known to sometimes like I like went to Greece last year and I had the first few days I knew where I'd be and then I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go day by day. I'm going to like decide in the moment and because for me that was a challenge, right, to relinquish like having all the details and just say, you know what, and then the hotel in Athens was full by the port. So it's like, no, maybe I'm just gonna go to an island. And the first hotel was
Sure.
booked. And I'm like, there's got to be one hotel on this island,
Yeah,
right?
and you can sort of do that in these like countries like Greece or Western European countries, even Latin America, Central America, but that becomes a totally
Mm,
different beast when you try to do that in Central Africa, Central Asia, West Africa, the Pacific. These are
yeah.
countries that are much more difficult to plan for. Visas, as Westerners, we're very lucky in the passport quality that we have in terms of where we're allowed into without visas or where we can get e-visas, which is not the case for other nationalities. But even us, like when we travel to some of these more obscure countries, we have to figure out visas and go to embassies and all that sort of thing. So in that aspect, maybe it's a bit more nuanced, as I'm sure not everyone is going to set out to visit every country, but it is something that I always had to keep in the back of my mind when I was traveling in the more remote countries.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, it seems like too, I love these like 2 to 3 month kind of blocks. Did you ever have like a block planned where something happened and you had to switch up your itinerary or go somewhere else due to an unforeseen circumstance?
There were a few times where I had flights canceled, and I had to sort of re-navigate. I remember once I was in the West African country of Guinea-Bissau, which is not somewhere I'd recommend your listeners or readers go to. But I remember like we were stuck in the airport for 8 hours, and then uh, like we got on the plane, and then we were on the runway about to take off, and then the plane like had an issue or broke apart, something, I mean, crazy. And then got off the plane, waited again, and most of the Africans are pretty vocal when they're unhappy about something. And so there was like a 3 or 4 flights had been canceled, and then there was like a little like coup in the airport or a little uprising with the passengers, and they had to send in like the military to quell the issue. And so as that happened, I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I left the airport, and then I took like an overnight. I found a guy to take me to the Senegalese border in Senegal, and then from there to the border of, sorry, to Gambia after that. And I was like detained by the Gambians who thought it was suspicious that I was like traveling in the middle of the night by myself from Guinea-Bissau. And yes, it does happen, and it's just one of those things that you just have to kind of take it like rain, like there's, it happens and you just deal with it, and eventually it'll stop raining.
Yeah, that's not the typical like, oh yeah, my flight got canceled and then I just got another flight and I sat at an airport lounge while I waited. It's like then you had to find a
Yeah,
guy to take you to this place, but they were kind
yeah.
of like, I don't know about this guy. Let's hold on to him for a while. Not your typical flight cancellation or delay story.
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. It's funny because the guy at the Gambian, so I had to cross from Guinea-Bissau to Senegal and then from Senegal to Gambia. And the van that dropped me off at the Gambian border said Guinea-Bissau, which is a country that's known for drug smuggling, like as compared
Mm,
to those other countries. And so the guy thought I was a drug smuggler. So
oh
like
my
they held me,
gosh.
and the questions they were asking were like searched all of my stuff and did the test, which is a surprise they even have there, honestly. But it was just very,
Wow.
very bizarre.
Well, you don't recommend Guinea-Bissau for folks, but are there places that surprised you in a delightful way where you're like, wow, I did not even see this coming about this place?
So many. I mean, the countries that I've enjoyed the most are generally the ones that I, would have never expected, where you're met with this very genuine, vulnerable human kindness. I always say that the countries that are politically unstable or going through economic hardship, that's where you find the kindest people. Venezuela and Iraq are the two that stick out. I think
Mm,
Iraq, for me, was my first time visiting a quote unquote dangerous country, and just the level of kindness I experienced during my time there, especially as an American, because I thought I would be treated with a sort of contempt and disdain given the political history between our two countries, especially in recent years. And it was the opposite. People were very honored that an American, despite the negative reputation that Iraq might have abroad, was willing to come here and spend time and money and
Mm.
to take an interest in learning about the history and the traditions and the religion. So that was a very special trip for me. And Venezuela, the same, a country with a lot of political instability, very difficult to travel to. They don't see a lot of tourists, so they're very happy to welcome tourists to share their culture with them. Um, in these places, I visited a slum there called Petare in Caracas. It's seen as one of the most dangerous slums in the entire world. And I remember that the amount of people that were willing to give me free food, free drinks, wanted to share a dance with music, had no hidden intention. Was really shocking that people that had so little were willing to give everything that they had to a stranger.
Wow. I mean, that really plays to this, like, how we start to form biases and opinions about places based on whatever information we have. And one of the things that we practice in improv is kind of seeing things in a new way, right? Like, one very simple and silly exercise that's done is like you point to an object and you say what it is, and you do that a few times, and then you point to an object and you say what it's not. So I might point to my microphone and say refrigerator, or point to the window and say giraffe. And it's definitely like a brain workout, but it also kind of gets us in this frame of mind to start looking at bigger, more consequential things in new ways. And so I'm curious, what you gave two great examples, like what those experiences have maybe helped you understand or taught you about how you look at other things in new ways, or kind of go into situations without preconceived notions. Did you find yourself getting better at that as you traveled more and those maybe beliefs or expectations were challenged?
Yeah, absolutely. And what you said, like, kind of challenge the preconceived notions. A lot of it was, I didn't even have any sort of preconceived notions because I had no idea what to expect. And
Mm,
so that was great, in terms of like having an open mind and really just allowing myself to experience the surroundings of the place that I were in. I stayed with the Mundari tribe in South Sudan. That's a nomadic tribe. They bathe with cow urine, like things like that. I could have never imagined that I would experience at any point in my life. And then to have experiences like that over and over and over again, in every corner of the world. And I guess the bigger message is, and it's, maybe it sounds trite, but that, you know, judgment is, I guess, one of the banes of humanity. If
yeah.
we didn't have, if people were more willing to listen with an open mind, and to meet people from different backgrounds and different cultures, uh, I think the world would be a much more empathetic, better place. And I think that we can get there. I really do. I would implore people not just to travel, but also to recognize that you don't have to travel abroad or to visit every country in the world to have experiences that are, valuable or open your mind, right? Like, a city like Los Angeles, where you're in, is a perfect example. What a diverse place with so many different ethnic groups. People have so many different backgrounds, um, different cultural identities. So to take an interest in meeting those people, to exploring those places. Even here now in San Diego, like I try to go to just like immigrant-owned restaurants for fun because I like to meet people from other nationalities now that I'm not traveling as much. So I went to a little Ethiopian restaurant the other day, and I had a great conversation with the owner about the war that they had over the last 30 years, the current geopolitical climate in Ethiopia, things like that, right? That you don't need to travel to the other side of the world to really understand.
Yeah. Well, I gotta know, did you bathe in the cow urine?
Good question. No, but they also use the cow dung. So the cow poo, they burn it and they put
Ah.
it on their face to protect against mosquitoes. And I did do that.
Did
So
it
I get like a
work?
mark. It did. I got no mosquito bites.
Oh my gosh. So will we see like the Cameron brand mosquito repellent made from cow
Yeah, I have a
dung?
picture. I have a picture of it. It's like me with one of the locals from the tribe with like an AK-47, and my face is like completely white. It's a very dramatic picture.
Oh
And
my,
I'm holding like a dagger in the picture as well.
oh
So
my
probably the most dramatic
gosh.
picture I have from my travels.
I imagine you have so many pictures and so many stories. Were you documenting this? Were you journaling? Are you, I mean, I want to read your book. So,
Yeah, one that's what my grandmother says. So maybe one day I'll write one. But yeah, I wish I had done a better job. I mean, so I didn't go the influencer route, which maybe I should have looking back. But I used Instagram for my friends. So I was sharing stories every day about it, but it was kind of niche. Like I was sharing very geopolitical, like historical facts and statements that maybe the rest of the world is not so interested in. But
mm,
again, like I'm someone who's 12 years old and was at a Model UN advanced geography camp. So for me, it was fascinating. Maybe my other friends would just swipe when they saw my name. But um, yeah, so I did that. I took lots of pictures, lots of videos. It was nice that I maybe didn't go the influencer route in a sense because I was very present. Like I was just able to enjoy. But yeah,
yeah.
I took lots of pictures and videos, but none like to try to make any money or do any personal branding from.
What's the weirdest thing? And by weird, I mean like weird from the perspective of growing up in America. Weirdest thing you ate?
I had raw horse meat or like lightly boiled horse meat in
Okay.
Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan. I had bear in Finland. What else? I had Japanese pufferfish while I was in Osaka.
Mm.
I had yeah, I think that's
You have any tripe?
maybe
Africa? Any of the
yeah.
tripe?
Oh,
Yeah.
that yeah, but
That's, I
that
guess, not
was
as weird as
yeah.
bear.
The only thing I drew the line at was monkey stew in the Congo. And I have a picture of
Ah,
like the monkey skull in the pot. And I just like I was in a very rural part of the Congo too, like the center of the country. And yeah, I couldn't do it.
wow. Yeah, I mean, we all have limits. I mean, I think that's a pretty reasonable one. I think that's it's kind of like what's weird to one person is normal to someone else,
Sure,
right?
sure.
Um,
Absolutely.
okay, so you mentioned, you don't need to travel to actually learn about other cultures. What are some of the ways that you like? I'm just thinking, like, for folks that want to not only learn about other cultures, but also like maybe handle those travel things better if they are to travel into other cultures. Like, what are maybe a few, if we were going to throw some Cameronisms on a throw pillow for folks, or maybe a reminder mug or travel mug they could take when traveling, what were some things you might leave people with, or tell them to bring with them on their next trip?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, obviously the attitude is one thing, right? And I don't want to sound like a kindergarten teacher telling, kids over again, but I think that really is the most important thing. Like you can find fun stories and great memories. In fact, the best ones that I had are in the maybe less nice countries to say, for lack of a better word. But just always that openness of willing to meet people and share a beer with anyone. That's a sort of pillar, I think, of getting the most out of your travels. On a more logistical note, I think travel light. People, for some reason, especially women like my mother, love to travel with massive suitcases of things and like I don't even know what she puts in it that makes it that heavy. I mean, I literally visited every country in the world with a Nike duffel bag and would travel for months on end with that. So that is actually like a really key element of being able to move quickly and nimbly. And so that's just one important thing for sure. And yeah, I mean, I think as far as like items go, I don't really have any. Someone was asking me this the other day, and I was like, you know what? I only had three souvenirs in the entire time I visited every country in the world: a North Korean propaganda poster, a book I got in Tuvalu as a gift, and then a carpet of the Taj Mahal. So I really didn't pick up that many things or use that many items. And then I think also just to do your research and planning your trips. There's a lot of great blogs. It's never been easier to travel these days. There's so many e-visas now popping up for different countries that you'd have to go through an embassy or a consulate before. AI is incredible. ChatGPT is great to help you plan your trips. So many great resources now that 20 years ago people would have never imagined would exist.
Well, I guess one of the benefits of just bringing a backpack is that if you get stopped somewhere because they think you're a drug smuggler, they don't have a long time to check through your bag. You just have one
Yeah,
backpack, so it's not going to
yeah,
take that long.
yeah. And I guess I fit the profile as a drug smuggler. Beard, Middle Eastern, 6'3", solo traveler from the middle of the night, like the Gambian Senegal land border. So I guess that makes sense.
Tell us about your nonprofit.
Yes. So Humanity Effect, I started it when I was 22. So I'm 25 now, 3 years ago. We're based in Makoko, which is a slum of Lagos, Nigeria. It's a very interesting community in that it's in the water. So you have 200,000 people that live in the water on wooden stilt homes. And so instead of cars, they have canoes. We have two schools there. We have an orphanage there. We just finished our medical center. And I take a group every year, every other year. So it's just a place that feels a lot like home for me. Nigeria is a very warm and fascinating culture, perhaps the heart of Africa in a sense. Um, the Afro beats, which I love very much. Our kids over there are phenomenal dancers. That's the best thing I love to do with them when we're over there. We have plans to expand Humanity Effect to eradicate the educational crisis in Makoko. Now the numbers are up to maybe around 50% of primary school age children are able to go to school. But we want to keep building schools and growing until all the kids there can have access to education and to be supported in whatever careers they want to go to later in their life.
And where can people like learn more or support what you're doing there?
Yeah, humanityeffect.org. That
Okay.
is our website. And then our Instagram is humanity.effect.
Okay, we'll definitely put that in the show notes so people can get right there. Anything you haven't shared, Cameron, that you would like to share before we wrap up?
No, I think you did an awesome job at asking me all the great questions. And I'm so glad you didn't ask me the question of what my favorite country is because I hate getting that question. I answer that question way too often, and I always give a different answer when someone asks me that. So I'm very glad you
Well,
didn't ask me.
I don't even know what my favorite country is, and I haven't even been to 195 countries. I'm sure it's a hard one, but I am going to ask you as we close off. Now that you've been to every country, like, do you have your next plane ticket? Like, where's your next trip?
Um, I mean, so I'm doing some influencer marketing work right now for one of my best friends. He's a YouTuber, so we have something in Dubai coming up, which is exciting, more of
Okay.
a work trip. But my grandmother still lives in Egypt. I'm Egyptian ethnically, and so I go to visit as much as I can. So I think that will be the country that I spend quite a bit of time in over the next few years.
Amazing. Well, Cameron, thank you for being here. Thanks for sharing your stories. And please write that book because I know I'm not the only one that wants to. I know that I and your grandmother aren't the only one that want to read it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Mary.